I made a 13-year-old boy earn my puppy, and 15 years later, he came back for her again. Back in 2008, my golden retriever had a litter of 14 puppies, and my house turned into chaos. I took 3 weeks off work just to keep them fed, cleaned, and alive. Every morning around 4 a.m., I'd let them tumble around the yard while I stood there half awake with coffee. My neighbor Beth would come over sometimes and laugh at the mess. One morning, when the puppies were about 6 weeks old, she said her son Mitch wanted one. I told her if Mitch wanted a puppy, he had to come ask me himself. The next morning, there was a knock on my porch. Mitch was standing there, skinny little 13-year-old, hands shaking, trying hard to look brave. I told him to sit down and asked what he wanted. He asked how much the puppies cost. I said $650. His face dropped, but he stayed put. He looked at the floor for a second, then said he wanted one anyway. He said he'd name her Ginger. He said he didn't have any money yet, but he'd get a job, make payments, and be her best friend for life. I didn't buy it. I'd seen kids fall in love with a puppy and lose interest the second it got hard, so I gave him a test. I told him he had 4 weeks to bring me $400 cash. If he did that, he could take home a 10-week-old puppy. After that, he had to pay me $100 every week until he hit $650. If he missed one payment by even 1 day, I'd take Ginger back. He stuck out his hand right away and shook on it. I figured that was the last I'd see of him. I even told Beth not to get his hopes up too much, because kids make big promises all the time. I was wrong. That same day, he found a paper route. He started delivering newspapers at 3:30 every morning, 7 days a week. After school, he mowed lawns, pulled weeds, and did odd jobs for anyone who'd pay him. Some mornings I'd hear his bike chain rattling before sunrise and see him crossing the street with a bag bigger than his back. Every few mornings, he'd stop and ask the same thing every time. How's Ginger doing? If I told him she chewed a shoe or got stuck under the porch step, he'd grin like it made his whole day. He never asked me to lower the price. He never asked for more time. About 2 weeks in, Beth told me he had blisters on his hands from mowing so many lawns. The next morning, he was still out there with tape wrapped around his palms. A few days later, it was raining before sunrise, and I watched him ride through it anyway with a trash bag over the newspapers so they wouldn't get soaked. That was when I stopped seeing him as some kid begging for a puppy. 3 weeks after our handshake, there was another knock at my door at 6 a.m. Mitch stood there holding a thick manila envelope in both hands. He said, "I have it." His eyes were red from being up since before dawn, but he was smiling so hard he could barely stand still. Inside was $650 in crumpled 1s, 5s, and 10s. It smelled like cut grass and newspaper ink. I just stared at him. We'd agreed on $400 in 4 weeks, and he'd brought the full amount in 3. I asked why. He shrugged and said he wanted me to know he was serious. That was enough for me. I went inside, picked up the little golden female he'd been watching from day one, and carried her out to him. The second he held her, she licked his chin and tucked herself into his chest like she already knew him. Before he left, I made him promise one thing. If there ever came a time when he truly couldn't take care of her, he had to bring her back to me. No giving her away, no dropping her somewhere. He looked me in the eye and promised. For the next year and a half, those two were inseparable. I saw him walking her before school, playing fetch after dinner, and sitting in the grass with her head in his lap. Then Beth came over one afternoon crying. Mitch's mom was very sick. The bills were piling up, and they had to move 3 states away to live with family. The next day, Mitch came to my porch with red eyes, and Ginger pressed against his leg. He could barely speak. He said he couldn't take her where they were going, and he was there because he'd promised me. I took Ginger's leash, and he broke down right there on my steps. I told him when life settled down he should call me. 15 years passed. Ginger turned gray around the face and slow in the hips, but she was still here. Then last month I got a call from an unknown number. The voice said, "Mr. Leon, it's Mitch. I'm a veterinarian now. I have my own place. Is Ginger still there?" 2 days later, he pulled into my driveway after driving 6 hours. Ginger was half asleep by the door until she heard his voice. Her head snapped up. Then she struggled to her feet, started barking, and pulled so hard toward him that I almost lost the leash. Mitch dropped to his knees in the driveway, and Ginger crashed into him, licking his face while he laughed and cried at the same time. I put her leash in his hand, and neither of them let go. Now Beth is saying I was too hard on him for the puppy. Was I wrong?